saying that they should break this down into parts where it can be analyzed properly in committee instead of trying to shove 450 pages down our throats at once.
That was NDP leader Tom Mulcair earlier on the show making the case for the government to break up the omnibus budget implementation bill. As we heard from Treasury Board President Tony Clement, changes to MP and public service pensions are expected to save taxpayers $2.6 billion over 5 years. So will the government split the bill to speed up the reforms? And the finance minister indicated earlier that the federal government is gearing up for a court challenge against the parliamentary budget watchdog. So joining me now to tackle these issues from the foyer of the House of Commons, Shelley Glover is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Peggy Nash is the NDP Finance Critic, and Scott Bryson, Liberal Finance Critic. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Hannah.
Now, Ms. Glover, I want to start with you. We're hearing that the Prime Minister is considering hiving off certain parts of the omnibus budget bill, in particular the MP pensions. Is this true?
Well, he responded in question period very clearly that he would take this under advisement, but of course at that point I hadn't heard from the NDP that they would be supportive of any of the measures in the Budget Implementation Act. I was doing a panel earlier with Ms. Nash. It seems to me that she's now indicated that the NDP are supportive of the MP pension segment and the public service pension changes that are recommended, which is nice to hear. I'm hopeful that they'll be supportive of other changes like the closing of the loopholes, making sure that we reduce duplication, ensuring that we move forward with better strengthening measures for our environment. Things like that are very important, including the hiring credit for small business, which unfortunately it seems to be a sticky point with the NDP. But nevertheless, we have indicated as well that if any of the other committees in Parliament would like to study other sections of this Budget Implementation Act, they're absolutely welcome to do so, and we'll take that openly under advisement as well. But we have gone over and above to make sure that opposition critics have a detailed package. We're going to be offering detailed briefings, not just for opposition critics, but for all members of Parliament and senators. We feel that this is a good way to ensure that everyone has what they need. But it's been months and months. They've seen the budget, and they should have been prepared for this Budget Implementation Act, because there are no surprises in it. There's nothing new, and so I'm hopeful that we'll see them agree with all the measures that are in the budget bill.
Peggy Nash, I want to come to you. If the Prime Minister really is seriously considering the Liberal offer to hive off MP pension in return for quick passage of that, would your party vote in favour of that?
Well, you know, as our leader, Tom Mulcair, said, the problem with this omnibus budget bill is that it does ram everything into one bill and doesn't allow you to vote for the things that you're in favour of. Our main concern has been there's really no other group in the country that gets to decide their own pensions, but we're actually surprised that these measures don't go as far as we thought they would. So ultimately, if it's a separate bill strictly for the MP pensions, we would be supportive of that. But I'll tell you what we're not supportive of. What we're not supportive is gutting protection for the heritage rivers in Canada. I just want to show you, Hannah, that right now we have 37 protected heritage rivers in Canada. And with the changes that were not in the budget but are now in this Budget Implementation Act, 27 of those 37 heritage rivers in the heritage river system would no longer be protected. This is supposedly, excuse me, Shelley, I didn't interrupt you.
That's not true, though.
It's absolutely true.
17,000 are protected under this act.
It's absolutely true.
17,000 are protected.
Under these changes that are brought in by this government, it wasn't in the budget, 27 of the 37 heritage rivers in the heritage river system will no longer be protected. So what rivers are we talking about? The South Nahanni, the Mattawa River, which flows into the Ottawa River, rivers a major river on Vancouver Island in Newfoundland. So I think Canadians will want to know exactly what's in this bill, and this is why we're saying, you know, if you want to gut the heritage river system, then why don't you create a separate bill? Let's take it to the Environment Committee, let the experts come in, let the environment critics study this, and then we'll see if it makes any sense to exempt pipelines from review, but then to gut the Heritage River system.
Now, Scott Bryson, what will your party's response be if the omnibus bill is not split up?
Well, first of all, you're right, Hannah. It was the Liberal Party, Bob Rae, today in the House of Commons, calling for the government to separate the MP pension issue. We would support that, and we would vote to move forward with these changes immediately.
And if they don't?
Well, we hope they will. There was some indication that they may do that, and it should be, MP's pension should be treated separately from public service pensions in terms of this specific legislative vehicle. But in terms of the general direction of this kitchen sink bill with 443 pages affecting and changing over 60 laws and regulations, it continues the government's agenda of gutting Canada's environmental protection. And that began last spring in Budget Implementation Act 1. If the Conservatives like to name bills, based on what they actually accomplish, Peggy has suggested having a separate bill for the changes in the oversight around heritage rivers. Perhaps they could call this bill the Gutting the Heritage Rivers Protection Bill or something to that effect if we really wanted to reflect the intent of or the effect of the bill. But in all seriousness, these changes on the environment, these changes on fisheries have precious little to do with the budget issue, the fiscal issue. And so we want to see a respect for Parliament and an opportunity not just for individual committees to debate the issues, but also ultimately to vote on these pieces, these separate changes, separately as individual pieces of legislation.
Now, Ms. Glover, tomorrow, I just want to move on to another topic. Tomorrow is the deadline set by the Parliamentary Budget Officer for government departments and agencies to provide details on last spring's budget cuts. Earlier on the show, Finance Minister Jim Flaherty indicated his department will not provide this information to the PBO. Take a look. Will you go to court with the Parliamentary Budget Officer?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's had various views about various things that, quite frankly, are not consistent with the function of the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
Ms. Glover, is your government okay with a court challenge from an office that your government created to provide independent analysis of its finances?
Well, I think the minister said it very clearly that there have been several indications that the PBO has actually gone out of his mandate. And so, I mean, we're looking at this with all seriousness, and I'm going to leave it to the minister to respond to those kinds of questions. But I do have to clarify something, Hannah. I want to help my colleagues here. It is a new bill that we've just put forward, but there are things that were portrayed here that are misleading, and I'm happy to help brief them. The whole thing about the pipelines is absolutely not true. In fact, we changed the name of the Navigable Waterway, or the Navigable Waters Protection Act, to Navigation Protection Act, which means we had to just make consequential amendments to things like the National Energy Board Act, which includes the protection of the pipeline. So, and again, about the water, there's 17,000 that are protected. It's just that they are protected under common law for some cases and under the Protection Act under others. So I'm happy to help them learn because it is new, but to spew this kind of misleading information, Canadians deserve to know better, and they will know because we're going to share it with them as well.
I want to thank all of you guys for your time today. We're right out of time. Thanks to Shelley Glover, Peggy Nash, and Scott Bryson for joining us today.
Thanks.
All the best, Hannah.
Still, he got up.